Hello and welcome to Classeek 15. This is the podcast home of classical career advice in bite-sized 15-minute rehearsal break-sized conversations. I'm Jack Pfeffer, I'm a composer and radio presenter, and throughout this year we are exploring the relationship between a musician and their agent. Who does what to expect, some golden rules for getting and staying signed, and plenty more practical do's and don'ts. Today we welcome Lydia Connolly, who has over 30 years of experience as a board director at Harrison Parrott. She was worldwide general manager for a prestigious roster of instrumentalists, conductors and composers, and she headed up the company's artist management department. I began by asking Lydia to define the role of a good agent and what expectations an artist should have.
What a manager is and what a manager isn't. A manager is not a magician. A manager is not the end game. A manager is not a tax expert or advisor. That's something that artists sometimes assume or expect or hope for, and it's really not the case. Artists really have to look after their own tax, and that's complicated if they're working internationally because there are different rules in different countries. A manager will not necessarily be a fully qualified lawyer. A lot of managers have paralegal skills and they're more than competent at dealing with contracts up to a certain point with super complex contracts, multimedia type projects. It's an idea to make sure that you get a qualified lawyer to look at that. And some management companies will have an in-house lawyer who can advise. What a manager is a strategic partner, somebody who plots together with an artist the steps in their career to help them to realize their artistic goals and ambitions. Somebody else has come up with this word, so I'm not going to claim authorship, an Imagineer. Disney has a department of Imagineering, right? I think a great manager is an Imagineer alongside an artist for what could be. They are an advocate for the artist. They are an advisor. They are a counselor. Sometimes they are a borderline therapist. They're somebody who will take the flak. They're somebody who will help when situations get difficult, get challenging. They're somebody who will go out to bat for that artist. What they are not is the bad guy. There is a tendency for managers to get blamed. Whenever something goes wrong, it must be the manager's fault because the manager's sitting in the middle. Well, not necessarily. I think it's also worth asking yourself the question if as a musician you're considering signing with a manager, or maybe there are a couple of managers who are, looking to get into a relationship and you have to choose. I always suggest you ask yourself the question, it's the Ghostbusters question, who are you going to call? Who are you going to call when you are really in a mess, when you've miscalculated, when you're not going to be able to fulfill what you promised? You need to manage that situation with somebody who has the respect of the industry and who knows how to handle relationships so that everybody comes out of it friends.
And when you're looking at potential managers, and you're looking at the people they already work with, should you be looking for somebody who works with people like you? Or should you actually be looking for the gap and you go, actually, they don't have a composer in my case, so this person would be right for me? What should somebody be looking at when they maybe see a roster of already signed artists?
Well, it can work both ways. I don't think that there's it's difficult to set out a series of rights and wrongs there. You could say that if a management company has a roster of some of the most wonderful violinists in the world, for a young violinist to join that roster could be the perfect place because that's where presenters will go when they want the top violin options. And of course, all the top violinists can't necessarily take on all the engagements that are going around. At the same time, perhaps if an artist is playing a less well-represented instrument, woodwind and brass instruments, it's a harder thing to work together to pursue a solo career, to develop a solo career. It may be less advantageous to go somewhere where they already have a couple of those instruments, and that management may be saying, you know what, we've got our work cut out to do a great job just for these guys, and to take on another one of that instrument at the moment, we don't think we could do you justice. Assumptions are really dangerous things, though. I always say never assume anything. Ask a question. Do the homework, very, very important. And do ask questions. And there tend not to be very many really stupid questions.
So the interaction then with, say, a boutique company versus, say, a big major company? Are there big differences between the two, would you say? What are the sort of the pros and cons of both decisions?
Again, it depends on the individuals and what they're looking for on both sides. The benefits of a big company with a lot of experienced managers who are in touch with a huge portion of the market at any one time and sharing all of that information gives access. And it can't be denied that access is one of the key ingredients in finding opportunities and therefore building success. The benefit of a smaller management company is the level of personal attention, potentially, and the attention to that sort of detail. Maybe the sweet spot is a place which has the benefit of the access and the reputation and the influence of a big management company, and a smaller tailored team within that is able to give the personal attention. And then you've got the best of all worlds.
And what is helpful, over your experience over the years, what has proved helpful in terms of an artist providing this or thinking that way, a sort of list of helpful things a client can do for their manager? What would that list look like, Lydia?
Well, I was speaking to an artist just recently, and I said, you know what, part of the responsibility of an artist is to help to keep their manager as excited about them several years into a relationship as they were on the day they signed them. And so when artists are engaged with the communication, they're good at answering, they have ideas, they're talking to people as they go around, they're reporting back on their conversations, they're keeping positive energy going, they're creative about their programming. Positive energy, I keep coming back to those words as well. I think if both parties are feeding, positivity towards one another, then that's going a long way to make a successful team.
I had a lovely saying the other day, you are who you surround yourself with. And I think, they always say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And it's true that energy, it's a circular thing, and the agent has to be excited about you to communicate that to others. Excitement is infectious, isn't it? In the best possible way.
And I also say, when it comes to that horrible word, networking, the most successful kind of networking occurs when people communicate enthusiasm and interest and find points of connection from an authentic and honest and deeply felt place. And all of this is to do with positive energy and can-do attitude. And it's tough. It's tough making a career as a soloist or as a chamber musician, as a conductor, as an orchestral musician, as anybody, in the music sector. It's tough for managers too. And one of the most valuable things I think you can do to really contribute to the ecosystem is concentrate on being a positive force in it. And being solution-oriented and thinking, yes, and we could do this, and how about that? Now, I know there's a limit. One must be reasonable, and, you can't be reckless. I think in that day-to-day sense of being a positive energy in a room, that's always a really important thing.
And how does this all apply to the lens of a young artist starting out? Let's say they haven't even been signed yet, but maybe looking to be. What would catch your ear, in your former life? What would you be looking for, listening for? What would grab your attention in a very crowded field?
Well, excellence, outstanding excellence is a non-negotiable. What you hear has to grab you, has to be compelling, has to draw you along. There's musical storytelling that has to be irresistible, that changes something in you. It's a transformative experience when you hear a great artist or a great performance. That's a sort of a given. A sense of somebody who has a vision, somebody who has curiosity, who's already on a creative journey, who is looking ahead, who has a sense of their own responsibility as an artist, a sense of why they're doing what they're doing, and what it is that they're going to contribute and why that matters. Somebody you can talk to, somebody you can have an exciting exchange with, somebody you sit in a room with and after a bit you think, oh, this is fun. This is going to be fun. Somebody who shows that they're a bit organised I'm not, not everybody is a perfectly organized human being. There needs to be, just some reasonable ability to, deal with the communication and to and fro and understand, again, why it matters.
And were young artists coming to you? Were you going to them? Like, how much is it a proactive responsibility on the part of an artist looking to be signed?
It goes both ways. Managers are approached all the time, unsolicited, by artists who are looking for management. And then managers as well have a strategic responsibility to themselves and to their colleagues to be continually thinking about the roster and if and when it needs to be expanded, developed, whatever.
So let's say in your management days, I want you to come to my recital. What would that email actually say? Dear Lydia, I am an 18-year-old. How would you phrase it?
Well, you start with the subject line. So I'll ask you, Jack, what are you going to put in your subject line?
Let's say composer.
You're going to put your name in the subject line?
Oh, yes. Jack Pepper, let's say I'm a 17-year-old composer from London. Maybe I put that so you get a little sense of where it's going?
I think, one of the things I always say is that email is going to land in an inbox which probably has well over 150 emails coming in a day. So unless your subject line says something a little bit more helpful than hello or...
Yes.
Making contact or something like that.
I used to be quite playful with my title. I used to put fancy a bit of pepper or something, pepper with your coffee. If we were going for a coffee, I would say coffee with pepper, ? And I'd make a joke of it.
I think I would be intrigued and I would open the email. I can't answer
intrigued
for
is a
everybody
polite
else.
way of putting it.
I think there are different ways of doing this. You need to keep it relatively short. You need to get to the point quickly and compellingly. If it's about inviting somebody to, come to a concert and then you can hear me, and obviously the thing is, I'd like to talk. I'm, looking for management, whatever. Again, using the subject line strategically is important. Making the person receiving this email feel there is a good reason and a sort of plausibility as to why this person is writing to them at this time is key. Don't send CDs in the post. Nobody has anything to play them on. I know that doesn't apply to reviewers. If you're writing to management, they want quick clicks.
And should you put in that first email, should you include an example of your work? Should you have a link to a video or a recording? You should.
Yes.
So that's not too much.
No, I think a simple click, and if they've got time, they'll have a quick look, but make sure that your materials are in good shape. If you've got to click through to your website, make sure your biography is up to date. Make sure that your list of advanced concerts is not 2 years old. Keep refreshing that website. I'm a strong believer in the power of the one-stop shop, which is the website where somebody can find all the things out about you in one place. Instagram absolutely has its place. Some people are better with it than others. Bear in mind that the Instagram and website are, in the end, passive sort of shop windows for you. So that proactive and intentional note, whether it's to presenters, you don't necessarily need a manager now or at any time. You may the kind of email you're talking about may be going to the market, not just to a manager. I also always say do your homework, so that when the person receives it, they think, like I said, it's plausible. There is a reason why this person's writing to me.
A sense of them caring. I have to say, the best emails I get are when somebody writes because they know they've listened to the radio show and they know that you're particularly interested in, let's say jazz meets classical music, and then I get sent a new release about Nikolai Kapustin. I can tell that's somebody who's really thought, or military bands, I've written a lot of music for them, and suddenly there's this slight curveball concert idea. And that feels much more specific. I've also had emails where they've written the wrong radio station in the title.
Eek.
And that's just a very basic sense of, do you really want to talk to me? And it's not an arrogant thing, it's just that sense of connection, as you say. That's the basis of it all.
That's exactly right. And it's just sloppy, bad spellings, especially, heaven forbid, the misspelling of the name of the person you're writing to. always check it. The stuff's there online to double check.
And should that first message be an invitation? Is it too direct to say, Lydia, come to my concert, please, if you're free on whenever?
No, I don't think so, because, if it's an invitation to something that's happening, you're already establishing a certain level of plausibility. Look, somebody trusts me enough to let me play in public. And if you're careful about the timing of the email and you make sure that this concert is somewhere the person can reasonably get to, again, thinking about the plausibility of when that lands. There is nothing more helpful than being in a room and actually hearing somebody play and then being able to talk to them. Managers have to Google, they have to find things online. It's just a fact of life. They can't be in, 100 different live concert performances on a weekly basis. It's not going to happen. If you have a concert coming up and if you know that it's going to be an occasion where you really show yourself in a good light, it's going to be a nice experience, that person who's coming is going to feel it's worth their time going. They're going to feel it's worth it before, during and after. Absolutely. Invite them along.
So just finally, somebody listening now thinking, maybe in the next hour, is there something I can do to just get a little step further in my career? A young artist, what's something practical, something helpful somebody could do, at home today, right now, just to get that little bit closer to where they want to be? Your distilled 12 hours of your first lectures over those 2 days. What would be your sort of first stop golden rule?
Make sure your contacts database is in good shape. It is surprising that people, even when they have started to play a few concerts, don't keep good records of where they've played, what they've played, how much they got paid, and who the contact person is. It's a very boring, prosaic sort of thing to suggest. Sometimes the practical organisation and just getting your ducks in a row can be a very useful part, just a part of underpinning what comes next. I would also say, get out of the practice room and go to something else and discover something else that excites you artistically, creatively, and step outside your comfort zone a little.
Lydia Connolly, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed it, please do hit like and subscribe and spread the word about Classeek 15. We really appreciate your support. You can find every episode on the usual podcast platforms and online at classeek.com, exploring everything from touring life to coping with injuries to how to deal with a media interview with someone like me. Surely nothing can prepare you, except Classeek 15, of course. Jack Pepper signing off for now. Grateful for your company and hoping to chat again soon.